think actually politically we've had great support around the country about the need to invest in our infrastructure, particularly in smart grid. I think the political challenge comes in for the first time in a really long time we're interfacing with our customers, putting new equipment on their premises, and the ability to educate those customers so that they don't reach out with concerns to the political community is really important.
Well, I think when you deal with the electric infrastructure, you've always got the national issues associated with national regulation. You've got the state issues associated with state regulation. You've got 3,200 or more service territories associated with how we actually operate the grid. So that's a very complex structure to get policy right in an environment that's changing as fast as our electric infrastructure.
Actually, the political challenges, I think, maybe greater than some of the technological challenges, and that's really focusing on balancing now the federal politics with the state-based politics and trying to mesh get all of the stakeholders on the same page. So we're working both at the federal level and the state level to make sure that people understand our smart grid vision, what we're trying to achieve, and move forward with the overall program.
I think the greatest political challenges are going to be in educating the regulators on the potential for the smart grid and the opportunities that abound around it. And again, it's similar to the technology. It's not so much a challenge as it is an opportunity. The challenge is in education. The opportunity is in the outcome.
I believe the regulatory that while perhaps might not be shared by all, I think the way that we're going about it on a state-by-state basis is a bit problematic for what we're trying to do. We have many more utilities that operate across multiple states, and their desire, and a utility executive wants to deliver the same class of service to all their customers. And when they have to go state by state by state in order to get through all the regulatory regimes to be able to offer a new solution to their customers, the time involved and the energy and the amount of effort to clear all those regulatory regimes is extremely bureaucratic today.
Political challenges are numerous. We find them at the local, state, and federal level, and it's primarily concerning transmission. You see, the rights of way to put in new transmission are predetermined by FERC, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, but the states have to go through their own processes, and you have a number of special interest groups that are opposed to transmission lines being in their neighborhood, the NIMBY problem, and we also have competing technologies that are offering a chance, as we said earlier, to store energy rather than to keep transmitting more and more energy. Also, energy efficiency technology is improving, and that is really an important part of the smart grid for the next 4 to 10 years.
You know, I think probably the most significant thing is with what's happened from a federal government standpoint, with them wanting to invest more money into our sector for growth, innovation, development, job stimulation. I think while it's a great concept and a great idea, my concern is the speed at which they're asking us to spend the money. If there's not some political governor on that so that we're making sure we're getting the right value for that investment on a state-by-state basis, it's difficult to say that you've got federal policy driving a lot of state-regulated activities. So it's really the challenge of how do we get the federal policy and the state policy connected when you've got a huge amount of money out there to be invested.
Yeah, I would see actually from both the state regulatory commissions, every single state has got its own different political obstacles and hurdles they have, and then there's not one vision throughout any of the states, and also with the federal government. So it's like every single state having a different internet. It's like developing the internet for every single state, and in terms of scaling that, interoperability of the different components, applications, everything is going to have to be customized. And when you do that, you drive up costs, and those costs are then passed on to the utilities, and the utilities pass that on to the consumers, or the additional cost slows down how quickly we can actually deliver this to the consumers. So if we had one vision, one goal throughout the country, then we'd be able to do this a lot quicker.
I think there's still a fair amount of education of not only the regulators but the consumers as to the benefits and why we should be doing, building out smart grids to contribute towards the energy efficiency that we're all striving towards. I think that still has a long ways to go to prove out the benefits that the consumer themselves will see.
Political challenges. Well, that's an interesting question. I think probably the biggest challenge is the relationship between the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, the ISOs, and the states. Because as power prices or the power market becomes more regional, the states still want to have control, but there's some issues where really you need a more regional or national approach. And I think there's a push and pull right now between which organization should have jurisdiction, a federal, state, or a regional.
I think one of the most significant challenge facing the smart grid is more of how do you get the public to endorse and begin to use smart grid technology. One of the challenges I see is the fact that information dissemination across the industry as to what smart grid is, what smart grid does, the benefits, being able to convey that information to regulators. It's more of the bigger political challenge. I think other challenges that would sort of tie into the politics that would not necessarily come to bear here, such as funding of these projects, if you may, but from the standpoint of the real barrier to cross is one of communications, being able to communicate to the stakeholders the benefits of smart grid. There's a lot of politics involved, how you go about doing that, and the sooner that can be resolved, where you can really show the benefits of smart grid to the consumers as well as to the regulators, communicating that information, the sooner you can do that, the easier it will be to keep the ball moving forward as we adapt and deploy more smart grid technologies.